17th of August, 2013, Saturday night, Wynn Stadium, the Derby, Dragons, Sharks. 69th minute, trailing 18-12. One of the Sharks' big star signings has just had a try disallowed. To make matters worse, the Dragons have benefited from a penalty and kick back downfield. While it was a frustrating moment at the time, in hindsight, this event may have just sown the seeds to ensure this player and the team as a whole would make the right decisions and succeed on the biggest stage of all just 3 years later, when almost identical circumstances presented themselves on the 2nd of October 2016. Who and what am I talking about? Stay tuned to find out more. Welcome to another episode of Classic Cronulla Chronicles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ET Stand, the Cronulla Sharks fan podcast. Lets it talking, do the football. I'll get it out there eventually. Back in the studio with me tonight, CK for another episode of Classic Cronulla Chronicles. We'll call him our Wollongong correspondent, as we're referring to an equivalent match. So round 25 of the 2024 season this Sunday sees us travel south to play the Dastardly Dragons. Let's call them the Steelers. Let's face it, they are the dominant element of that entity, and should change the name accordingly. So we're going to go back to a game involving these two teams at that venue, and that was back in the time of Fifita and Carney, Michael Gordon, Asada, all those things to do with 2013. I think I've touched on at least one game in 2013 or that era with you, Kelly. So I'll just throw to you. What were your memories of this era, and did you manage to figure out if you were actually at this game or not? I know memories can be hazy.
Yeah, memories get a bit hazy, and especially when I've been there to the ground a few times, and most of the memories have been hazy down there. So I've spent a few games down there at Wollongong and sort of made the trek. We used to enjoy it, and it was a bit of a different setup. 2013, wow, pretty much it was kind of hard juggling work and trying to get to games at that stage. So it was a tumultuous time. I know I was still quite passionate, quite vocal. A lot of games spent listening on the radio in the car at work and things like that. So and catching highlights when I could. But yeah, I wasn't at this one. I thought I was, but I wasn't. It was a couple of years later that I moved down here, and still waiting for them to try and make it a yearly event so I can travel 5 minutes to a game again.
It would be good if they moved there permanently, and we'd have the regularity of going there.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, not the most happy hunting ground, this one. I know the feeling, similar, both of us shift workers. Lats is as well, shift working, living out of town as well, so it makes it difficult to make it to games. This one, for some reason, I thought it was a Monday night, first world problem back in the day, pre-kids, pre-COVID. I was actually in Europe at the time for about 5 weeks in the back end of 2013, which was a great time. European summer, watching us win a few games from far-flung locations. For some reason, I thought it was a Monday night, as I said. Turns out it would have been a Saturday morning. Remember, I was in Rome and I was trying to get scratchy reception, and I managed to get coverage for the last 3 minutes. And for those that know this game, spoiler alert, the 3 minutes were all that you need to watch, really, although it did freeze at the inopportune moment for me. So I heard the ending, thankfully, in the positive after that. But looking at the form, so the Sharks were sitting sixth. A bit of a patchy start to 2013 with all the Asada stuff. The emotion charge round one win over the Titans was big at the same time as Flanagan and everyone else was at Noakesy and Givney, and everyone was stood down / pending sack. Peter Sharp moving in as, I suppose, interim coach, and then Damien Keogh ticket getting up, everyone being reinstated, still having some injury and form concerns before we strung some wins together. So heading into this one, we had a bit of form, 3 wins, 2 losses. They were last start losers to the Knights, courtesy of a late Dane Gagai try at Shark Park. We're leading 14-12. A Todd Carney penalty goal put their noses in front, and then Knights sealed it with about a minute to go. Unfortunately there, we did have a big win, or an upset win by the same score, 18-14 over the Warriors in Auckland the week before that. And then prior to that, beat the Panthers 38-10. Got pumped. It was Origin period. Got pumped 40-0 at the City Football Stadium. I remember being there with Baldo, and I think, yeah, that Roosters without their Origin players, we were without our Origin players, but they just annihilated us on their way to obviously winning the comp that year. And then this was one I was actually at as well. It was a 19 points to 18 win over the Broncos. It was 0-0 at halftime in that game. Broncos scored first. Thought, here we go. Then we ran some points in, led by 12 and then 7, and then the Broncos gave us a bit of a scare late. Do you remember any of those games?
More the opening match with the Titans. I was actually at that one.
Yeah.
So more so that one. It was very emotional charge. A lot of murmurs around the ground. people still unsure what was going on. A lot of stories going around, obviously, and floating around at that time. So that one really stands out. That's that game at the Titans.
Yeah, it was interesting times, darkest day of sport, and there was no allegations about the Sharks when that ridiculous press conference occurred, but it only took a day or two, and then there was those dodgy blurred images and all the TV stations showing the Sharks. I'm like, what's going on here? And then Stephen Dank being mentioned, and no one ever mentions the fact that he was at Manly for years when they won 2 competitions. So yeah, we all do. But
I talk about a few of the cow bloods transfusions and things like that. The sort of people ignore, but I think that was that time where you're hanging on the edge of your seat every time a breaking news story came out, or even just a news story, like what's coming next, and any kind of pieces of news come out, because you just didn't know what was going to come out next. It was quite bizarre at the time. So
yeah, I remember it was a Friday afternoon when that press conference was held, when was Damien Irvine was away. So it was I can't remember his name. That'd be a good trivia question that I don't know the answer to right now. It'll come to me. The interim, or the deputy chairman or vice chairman or whatever it was hosting that press conference involving Trish Kavanagh, I think, was the person they'd appointed internally, that the Sharks had appointed, and she then recommended to basically turf everyone. And I was between night shifts at work, so it's like when you're sleep deprived and you're in that haze. It was about 4 p.m. and I think I was starting work a few hours after, and I've woken up and I'm like, what is going on here? This is just calamitous. And obviously it was Facebook was a thing, the forums were around, but it was before Twitter was really a huge thing and the like. But to social media at the time, the internet exploded with all the talk of, the NRL is going to wrap up the club, they're going to move them mid-season, they're going to have all their points taken off them, or talking about Wade Graham leaving mid-season and players copping 2 and 4 year bans and all that stuff. So crazy times. But anyway, later in the season, we got some form together, and we were going into this one hopeful of a victory. We were favourites. The Dragons were sitting 14th. They had an okay side, but they were on their continual downward slide following the 2010, let's say, repechage or Stephen Bradbury win, the Melbourne Storm point strips. We're going to talk about other controversies. So they were 14th, 1 win, 3 losses, and a bye. So they'd lost 24-26 to the Broncos. The Broncos weren't that great that year either. I think I'm not sure if they snuck into the finals or not, but they weren't in good form. Lost 39-20 to the Dogs, 22-18 to the Raiders. They beat the Bunnies 22-18, they had a bye. So going into this one, the Sharks were definitely short price favourites, and we'll look at the sides now. The Dragons, so their fullback was Jason Nightingale, the wingers Brett Morris and Charlie Runciman, the centres Chase Stanley, Daniel Vito, the halves not great, Adam Quinlan, Nathan Fan, the front row of Jack Stockwell, Mitch Rain, Ben Craig, the back row of Leeson Armour, Tyson Frizzell, former Shark, and Jack DeBellin, and the bench of Matt Pryor, familiar face there, Michael Wayman, Will Matthews, Bronson Harrison, and another familiar face, the coach was Steve Price in his short tenure post Wayne Bennett. While for the Sharks, Wade Graham was the big out with an injury, but they still had a pretty handy side. So the back three was Michael Gordon, Sasai Feki, and Bo Ryan, the new signing we had at the start of that year alongside Chris Hidington, as we alleviated the Tigers' salary cap concerns. I don't think the Tigers have any salary cap concerns these days, but back then they had a pretty handy side, and they were offloading anyone and everyone, and we were happily saying thank you. The centres, Ben Pomeroy, John O'Wright, the halves, Todd Carney and Jeffrey Robinson. Yes, that's not even your name, Jeff Robson. The front row of Bryce Gibbs, John Morris, Sam Tagatese, back row of Luke Lewis, Chris Hidington, Paul Gallen, and should be a captain there next to Paul Gallen. Sorry about that. And the bench, number 8, Andrew Fifita, dropped back to there. And number 12, Jason Bakuya, had also dropped out of the starting side. Isaac De Gois, Anthony Tupou. There was also an 18th man initially, or I think it was jersey 15 or somewhere in there. Name of the bench was Nathan Stapleton, who dropped out late. The coach, Shane Flanagan. So some decent teams there, especially on our side. Any players stand out to you?
From ours or for the Dragons?
Yeah,
what do you want to start with?
Yeah, we'll go Dragons.
Let's go
look at how
Dragons.
terrible they are.
Obviously, the rubber man, Jason Nightingale, sort of a bit maligned. He was a better winger than he was a fullback, but obviously playing back there. They had big raps on Chase Stanley. I know he was on a larger contract. And Daniel Vito, who is now in the WWE at the moment as a wrestler, so it's quite interesting
He
for
is.
us fans to see him wrestling over there. So he's doing quite well over there. So
He
good on
played
him.
for the Raiders as well. I think
Played for
he
the
had a bit of
Raiders
a,
and the Broncos as well. So
and the
yeah, he had a bit of a
Broncos.
career.
Yeah,
Got
Broncos and the
around a little
Gold
bit.
Coast. And the
And the
Gold Coast as
Gold
well. So
Coast.
he got around.
Yeah, got around quite a bit.
Cool.
They obviously had Nathan Feen there as halfback. Is now an assistant coach up there in North Queensland. He was down here part of the development juniors for a later period. Like you mentioned, Frizzell sort of started with us, ended up sort of kicking on with the Dragons, and then ended up the Newcastle up there. Our prior, interesting to see Wayman on the bench. He was one of their sort of bookends through those glory years they had for 08 to 10, if we can call them the glory years. And then, Bronson Harrison, another player that sort of got around a few different clubs. So it seems to be and going trend even now with our coach now switching over the Dragons, a few landing spots from some finishing up players or Grandpa's Armies, they like to call them. But
well, you're not wrong. I mean, Flano built the 2016 team around a few of those players, and where we signed Ennis, we thought the same. Grandpa's Army, we saw players like Heinington starting to get on in years. So yeah, he's trying to do the same there. Dugan was a big out for the Dragons in this one. I was looking at a few pre-match articles talking about Dugan being the I suppose I think he had a pretty good performance the week before in their loss to the Broncos and was a big out, but that's no surprise with Dugan being injured, and he would sign for us about 5 years later for the head of the 2018 season. So he spent a fair bit of time with the Dragons, just looking at a few other players. So you're right, and Bronson Harrison got around. He played for the Tigers for 5 seasons, and the Raiders for 4 seasons, then the Dragons. So you're right too about Michael Wayman was starting prop for the Dragons during that period where they were up the top of the table. While for the Sharks, good to see, I suppose the you call it turnover, or there was a whole stack of optimism heading into 2013. And we'd signed Michael Gordon, we'd signed Bo Ryan, Chris Hydington. Luke Lewis was the absolute standout signing from Penrith after Gus Gould had showed him the door rather inexplicably. And he was the captain. He was their star, their marquee. And there was a lot of interest, I think, from the Eels, the Tigers, us, probably the Roosters as well. And Lewis famously talks about how he had a dream that he hadn't decided which club. He had a dream that he'd win the grand final, and it was in Sharks colours. So that kind of sealed it for him. And then he, I suppose, talk about manifesting ideas and how he was writing on the, I think in the steam that went up on the mirror every morning when he brushed his teeth, he was writing Lewis Clive Churchill, and we know how that finished up, and he was doing that for several years prior. So it's crazy how these things happen. Even though we love you, Luke Lewis, that Andrew Fifita committing some off-field indiscretions probably helped you there, but still standout performance there. Any particular players you want to talk about there? Obviously, you got your mate John O'Wright in the centres and Ben Pomeroy as well.
Yeah, look, we obviously had the mainstays in, like you said, Jeffrey Robinson there. We had our star in Todd Carney, our soon-to-be future coach in John Morris at hooker. You mentioned Lewis. We already signed Heinton for Fifita across from the Tigers. Obviously, Tupou sort of getting close to winding it up. I think Fifita, I was more excited about Fifita than Heinton or, Bo Ryan obviously was the off-field sort of star and bringing a lot of limelight to the Sharks. But I'd seen a little bit of Fifita at the Tigers coming off the bench and playing short stints, and you can see he was the next sort of up-and-coming big star. So I was more excited about grabbing him. And like you said, we got a nice little blend there of, we've been here before and signed these kind of guys and overs and big money and things like that. But, we had a nice little blend here of stars and decent players and guys that have, shown the right way of doing things. So I was quite excited for this season.
Yeah, it was a real, I suppose, door-opening moment for us after all the heartache that was 2009, 10, 11. And we'd signed Todd Carney after he'd been shown the door by the Roosters. We got Fifita, and Bryce Gibbs started 2012, and bang on. Fifita was so exciting. And you watch that 2010 awesome semi-final between the Tigers and the Roosters, and Fifita's a real standout there as I don't know how old he was, probably about 20-odd. So... yeah, it was a good change in the guard there, which really kind of fell into our laps. Probably some astute I suppose, cap management by Darren Mooney, who was there at the time, and we just picked up a few players, probably nicknamed the Tiger Sharks for a while, and then it became the Tiger Panther Sharks. But we built a good side out of it, and all this other stuff happened just before round one. And I do recall David Balderman ending up on SBS News, I think it was. He was interviewed, I think, picking up his season seats or season tickets outside the Leagues Club, and talking about how devastated he was in amongst everyone else. So that was a 2 seconds of fame for him that I remember in those crazy times. But moving on to the actual match itself, all the talk in the lead up was our horror record there. We hadn't won in Wollongong since 1990 or something along those lines, 10 matches, and the start was not great. Back-to-back tries by Nightingale, followed by Morris, had us on the back foot, 12-0 down after 7 minutes. If this video works, I'll just show the first try. If it doesn't work, it's only a Dragons try, so you're not missing much. But they're swinging there was a line break. They swung. Sorry, it's a bit glitchy there. Swung to the left, and then it was just cutting straight up the middle. I'll see if I can reinvigorate it. Some short play, bit of an offload. Gave it to Nightingale to score under the post. So not missing much there, guys. But it was pretty ordinary defence, giving up the line break followed by that try. And then straight afterwards as well, basically the next set, they went downfield again and then just threw their hands, cut out past who caught, I believe, Bo Ryan out of position, having jammed in next to Pomeroy. His video's not quite working. And Morris dots down. Morris brought that one around, actually. There we go, to improve the position. Chase Stanley kicking both goals. So we're down early, but things did get better shortly afterwards. 15th minute, the all-important third try was scored by our favourite centre of all time, Ben Pomeroy. Tongue fell in me cheek there. We do love you, AT. But looking at this one, if the video works, maybe not. Yeah, swing it right in a nice little...
Is our cult hero, Beth?
He is, absolutely. Nice little pass out the back from Pomeroy to Michael Gordon, who linked up... Sorry, from Carney to Michael Gordon, who linked up with Pomeroy, who palmed off there to score. So sorry about the technical issues there as always, but we're back to 12-6 midway through the first half, and things were looking okay. Any observations from the opening period there?
Just the sort of similar mistakes we sort of bemoan all the time. Players jamming in and not having the numbers to sort of recover, especially with a player like Morris on that wing. It's not something you want to do and leave half a metre gap, and he'll just expose that. So good to see Pomeroy strike back. There's still sort of similar block plays they were doing back in 2013 as they're doing in 2024. So it's very, very similar sweep plays they're still playing today.
It's funny the parallels that we're seeing here. So we're going to this one. Okay, we were 6th at the time versus 14th versus 4th versus 8th. So Dragons a bit more to play this weekend. But looking at the talk around hold the ball, hold your line defence, don't rush in, have a good start. I hope I'm not seeing history repeat this weekend, because I'm not sure if we'll be able to come back. But there was a match the year before. I remember travelling down for it from Brisbane, where I was living at the time, in 2012, and there was talk, haven't won at Wollongong in a long time, sunny Sunday afternoon, and Brett Morris just carved up in that one. He scored and against the run of play length of field try. I think it was a loose ball or an intercept, and then basically caught us out a few more times too, and we lost there when we were again kind of the more fancied side. So be wary of the derby. And this was the main reason. Morris scoring again, 24th minute to make it 18-6. And that's the way it stayed for the rest of the first half. We did have a try disallowed to Chris Heinington for a barging over, but he'd basically gone through the ruck. So that penalty had come in. I know there was a period of time where players were getting away with it, but this is 11 years ago now, and showing that, you can't just dive straight through the dummy half. Or dive through the ruck. Yes, the players can't go anywhere, but blockers. You can't block, exactly. So this is the Dragons try. We'll see if that actually works. And again, this one, just dots down the corner. A little pass over the top again. Not sure, having not seen the play before. Maybe we were caught out too many. Yeah, but again, Morris was completely unmarked out wide. So Bo Ryan shown, unfortunately, I suppose, not his fault. The entire defensive system failed there, but anyway, we're down 18-6 at the break. It took a while, but we got back into it in the 56th minute. The Dragons did have a few opportunities, and De Gois finally scored. So we'll see We'll bring this one here. I think that this video should work as we're going across here, and Carney cut back off the right foot, gets an offload away, and Degoy scored next to the post, and he copped a fair head knock as he scored as well. So I think these days that'd cop a bit of attention and probably HIA, but back then, actually, sorry, my apologies, it was Jeff Robson stepping off the right foot and getting the offload away. So Degoy scoring next to the post to bring it back to 18-12. Then not too long afterwards, we had, there wasn't too much by way of highlights here, but a loose ball or kick through, loose ball. Lewis comes flying through and absolutely clobbers Nightingale, and they deem it fair play. And it's picked up by Bo Ryan to score in the 73rd minute. So that got us back almost level terms. Unfortunately, Todd Carney was kicking instead of Michael Gordon. Not sure the background there, but they did trade the kicking during that period. Missed it. So we're still down by 2 with about 7 to go. So we'll roll forward to the big moment in that we've all been waiting for it. And hopefully this video will work for us, because this is all you need to know about this match. It was opportunistic, but it got us the point. So Morris right to Carney is just over a minute to go, kicks it through, takes a deflection onto Fifita's foot, charging through. And unfortunately, I feel like Stirlo, it freezes there, but he comes sliding through and dots down. And you can hear Andy Raymond's commentary.
Bring him back.
Miracle.
Bring him back. Probably
exactly, bring him back. Miracle win.
There.
Miracle win. So I feel like I'm watching it on a dodgy stream from Europe again, right here with that video not working. So that was that. Any main talking points? I suppose the highlights aren't the most comprehensive, but you can watch the full replay for those who are committed on the NRL website. This one. So thanks NRL for this. Any points on the match itself from you?
Yeah, I think if you look at that, you're talking about the goal kicking. We obviously had quite a few options. Michael Gordon, Todd Carney, Jeff Robson could obviously slot him. Who else? There was a bit of a goal kicker out there.
We'll have a look. We definitely Gordon versus Carney was a chat for a long time as to who was the better kicker. Both right foot. Gordon took over the kicking early on in his tenure, and then I'm not sure if it was injury or what, but Carney took the lion's share in that period. But it was a good problem to have, given that we have before and since had some less than awesome goal kickers.
We had the cult hero before that, Luke Cavell, but yeah, it was.
Yes,
it was not sort of up the Sharks standard to have multiple options for guys that were, gun sort of kickers. So but I suppose you talk about in 2013, like obviously in 2024, we're getting a lot of with the 6 again, a lot more mobile props going over in the 10s and 8s. Props didn't really score tries. It was quite a celebration, a rare sight. And you see that kick. That kick's literally set up for Fifita to chase through. It wasn't a kick for Carney for himself. It was Carney for Fifita, who was lined up next to him to cut through for that play. So it's just to see a big number 8 stream through and do that sort of play was just amazing. Especially down there against that team. Like what more could you ask for?
Yeah, so you're right. Carney put a little kick through, and Fifita ended up towing it ahead. But Fifita, having heard him interviewed, I think it was on the Dan and Kemp podcast, how he's talking about coming through as a junior. He was him and his brother were both rake thin, and they were cross country champions. He had a couple of time trial records at the time at the Sharks when he was obviously unencumbered by his knee, really fit, similar to what we're getting in for Neil Blake, in a guy that is able to play 60 odd minutes. But Fifita was just so athletic. And then he got that frame on him as well. And the fact that he outpaced, so he kicked it through and he outpaced Nightingale, who's getting on his career, but beat a couple of speedsters to reach the ball as well, was just awesome. Looking at those kicking stats as well, as you were saying, Michael Gordon had an overall kicking statistic of 81.17%, so 681 goals from 839 attempts, while Todd Carney had, get that stat up, 78.32, so not too much in it, 289 from 369 attempts. So Gordon did kick more than Carney. You would say that probably a function of, was Carney the same side as James Maloney? Probably hadn't signed him by then. I know Carney and Pearce were paired halves, but Carney kicked 113 from 145 for the Roosters, 70 from 98 for the Raiders. He played 71 games for Raiders, while for us he played 51 games, and 106 from 126. So not as many where Gordon, I suppose, had a longer career, a lot of different clubs and was the main kicker at most, but Carney was the kicker on this occasion. So not sure the exact background behind that. Looking obviously at our record at win, though, I mentioned it the other night, it's dreadful. We'd lost 10 in a row prior to this one. We are last start winners there, so we've brought a few back. Obviously, we had the win in 2022 in the wet. We had a win in 2019 with Bronson Sherry, of all players, scoring a hat-trick. So we have played some big matches there. The 2008 quarter final we're talking about offline before was David Peachey's last match for the club. And unfortunately, that one was definitely a match that got away. I still am convinced there was a Michael Ennis forward pass in the lead up to the try that put the Dragons in front just after, I think it was a Trent Barrett 40-20 that really turned the tide after we were leading by 8 at half or just after half time. So, yeah, obviously, have you seen or witnessed any wins down there? I don't think I have. I think I've only ever been down and seen losses at win.
Yeah, it was the 2019 one. I was down there for this, obviously for that one. So that was a good one because I think again we might have started slow in that again.
Yeah,
and then just absolutely poured on the point. So it was quite enjoyable to go to that one. It'd been but like I said, it's been a while. I've kind of got a bit of a strange feeling about going down this weekend and standing on the hill in the sun. I do remember we made a bus trip down there one time and stood on the hill and I could barely see any part of the ground, let alone the football. And I'm pretty sure we got the wheels beaters off us on that one. Boldo and I travelled down with the in-laws who were both Dragon supporters to the semi-final and sat there and couldn't believe my eyes at what I was watching. But we did kind of limp into that final series, so it wasn't unexpected. We weren't favoured in that one, but I may not enter the ground at full time and found myself a Sharks drink bottle that lasted a good 10 years. So I have been there a few times to see some games, but yeah, nothing.
Mr. Merch, you would have been happy with. You would have been very happy with that little acquisition.
It was a game used drink bottle. Why, someone just left it laying there under the post, and most of the teams left the field. And I thought, why not? No one else is going to come and collect it. So
absolutely.
Why not me?
Yeah, you can't let that one go. But you are bang on with the fact that we limped into the finals in 2005. It was 05. Sorry, 05. I'm talking about what am I talking about? 05 quarterfinal. Apologies if I said the wrong year before. Definitely 2005. Limped in position 7. Dragons was second. Old McIntyre system, cannon fodder. But there was a few times, especially in the 7v2 match. And then again, the Dragons would experience a loss from first against the Eels, I think in 2009, and the Warriors in beating the Storm in 08. So I think they were the only 2 times that the 8th place team beat the team coming first. But there were a few teams that beat the second place side. So I think we were holding on to some kind of hope and ultimately went down by 6. And I think the final play in that one came down to a Peachy putting a grubber through that had no result as we were trying in vain to get a try late. Nigel Thangata in the number 6, Bo Scott in the centres. Strange times.
I think it's our favourite match in 2005. We went our last game of the season at Shark Park. And it's when we had the old stage and the band on there, and they had a bit of a full-time presentation. And it's me and Boldo's one of our favourite moments. I wonder if many people remember that Glenn Wheeler was up there because he was the ground announcer. The great Glenn Wheeler was the ground announcer.
I remember.
So that's it, Sharks fan. We can make the semi-finals. We're going to go to the grand final. 5 in a row. We yelled out 5 in a row. So we still yell out 5 in a row at this stage, like trying to ramp up the crowd that we're going to win 5 in a row and include the premiership. And I was like, no, like
just after
it's like talking about streaks.
Yeah, it is. It's just after our final home game of that year, farewelling David Peachy and Jason Stevens against Souths. We were leading for most, and then a young John Sutton carved up, and I think that might have been Kevin Kingston's first try for us. But that was that stage. It wasn't the same.
We were celebrating 8th.
Yes, it wasn't the same farewell as E.T. and Healy's Magic Day in 2000 on a sunny Sunday afternoon. This one was on a drizzly Saturday night with I think a decent crowd in the house, but it was flat as anything. And Glenn Wheeler, loved to him and all the family with all the troubles they're going through, but trying to fire the crowd up and go, come on, there's still a chance, and there was no chance. But anyway, we've said it before. Just all you got to do is win 4 games in a row, right? Just 4. How hard could it be? Just win 4 of the biggest matches you've ever played in a row, and don't worry about injuries and all that stuff. Just win 4 matches in a row against the best teams.
Yeah, you haven't done it all season, but just win the hardest 4 you can win.
Yeah.
So
Another a classic win match we will follow. I'm sure in future seasons we'll cover is that match you were talking about in 2019 when Bronson Cherry got a hat trick. We did turn on. We won 22 points to 9, so it was 8 all right on half time, and then Ben Hunt nailed a massive field goal to get the Dragons just in front. A bit of trivia for you: current Sharks player scored the only try for the Dragons that day.
current Sharks player. Whoa. But a current Shark who was an ex-Dragon. This is going to be a tough one. I'm terrible at it. I'm usually pretty good at where they've come from before.
If I say either two things, it'll give it away immediately.
Oh, no.
So one of them will be Boldo's favourite player. The second I'll say is former Dragons captain.
Oh, Cam McInnes, yes.
Yeah, Cam McInnes. He wasn't on that day. It was James Graham, but McInnes was starting 9, and he scored for the Dragons. Little did he know.
We haven't got some merged players that have slid in our team lately. We had so many crossovers a long time ago, but how can I forget Cam? Because he's our captain now. He's not a Dragon anymore. He's a Shark.
No, that's it. And the Dragons didn't want him. He was their captain, and they said, "No, go look elsewhere."
Best player of the club 3 years in a row, and they sent him on his way. And unfortunately, he did tear an ACL after signing that contract, but recovered quite well.
He did. Well, it allowed him to actually spend the back end of 2021 with us and get ready for 2022. Another fun fact from that match, and I'll stop here, but the fullback that day was a guy in jersey number 21. Probably his last game at fullback for us. Actually, no, he did have a few shockers in COVID there with his no hamstrings. Matthew Moylan played fullback that day with the halves of Flanagan and Townsend. So interesting times. But we also had Britton Nickera actually playing for us. That's crazy. I thought he actually no, it was 2019 when he started playing for us. Yeah. So looking onwards from there. Beau Ryan. So we signed him. He jagged a try here tonight. We were critiquing his defending, but I was a big fan of his signing. I'll bring his stats up now, but as I do you have any specific memories or thoughts on good old Beau Nose for his time with the club?
Well, obviously he was the hottest thing on the footy show on Channel 9 at the time. So, like I said, it brought a lot of limelight to the club. I know it brought a lot more female attendees and Sharks fans back on board to come and attend games. I know young Marley was quite a fan of Beau Ryan when she was 7 or 8 years of age and thought he was a bit of all right. So it actually brought the ladies back to the games. And like I said, it brought a lot of off-field stuff because he was promoting the Sharks. There was a lot of connections. I know he gave a jersey to the Magic Mike guys, where the Jackass guys come out. So any opportunity he had a chance to plug us on the footy show or Channel 9, it was plugged. So a great signing. It wasn't Beau Ryan of sort of West Tigers, but obviously our favourite game was the semi-final later on in the 7 tackle try. So loved having him there, and obviously he still lives in the area and still promotes us a little bit. So I think he stayed on as a Shark.
Yeah, I think we did win him as a Shark. I have heard his interview with Deanna Kemp on Bloke in a Bar, and I think Deanna Kemp did say he was his first interviewee. So Beau Ryan, and then again covered him there. So it was an interesting listen. I think I listened to the second one of those interviews, but really good. So he's from Wollongong originally, so that's what I thought. A bit of a synergy there from the Gong. Was in the under-20 system, the Dragons, in amongst all the Morris brothers and everyone else, and there was no way to get a look in. Grew up as a Dogs fan, was really skinny. He said he really struggled with the transition. It was always fast, but really struggled with that transition into playing against men, and then got a crack with the Tigers and went from there. He also has a really good story about how I suppose he diversified his career, getting into media and doing stuff with the footy show. And it was a real, I suppose, sliding doors moment in that he was a winger with one of the best players getting around, Taniela Tawaki. He claimed probably the best winger in the world at the time, and he copped a career-ending injury. So poor Taniela there. But in around that, Beau Ryan had a couple of poor matches. Tim Sheens was the Tigers coach at the time, was talking about how he supported Beau Ryan doing stuff off the field. And he said, look, some players play golf, some players have hobbies. His happens to be media, but he was getting a lot of stick for his performances on the field versus that media stuff there. And at that point in time, he was really a nobody. He hadn't really kicked on with the Tigers too much then. He'd made his debut in 2007 in and out of the side, hadn't really locked anything down. He was playing the Roosters on a Friday night at the City Football Stadium. And Dennis Kemp, who's interviewing him, he's also an ex-winger, and they're empathising with each other. The fact that you scored 2 tries and you're best player getting around, you concede 2 tries and blow 1 try, and everyone thinks you're the worst player who's ever a player, and you're never seen again. And luckily he scored 2 tries that night, took the heat off a bit, managed to secure his position and went from there, because he said if he dropped back to reserve grade, then the relevance is gone. Does his media career kick on? Probably not. What's he doing now? Who knows? Is he another one of those players who's played the NRL average of about 30 odd first grade games, who's never to be heard of again, and becomes a just one of those guys really that's a trivia question. And now he's moved on to hosting the Amazing Race and all those other things. So I actually do rate him, or did rate him as a player. I thought he was a good signing. His final year of the Tigers, he was copping a bit of stick, and then he down in Canberra, I think he stepped in at fullback and showed that he's a proper footballer. He, despite being small, he was great positionally. He was a man of the match in that game. Then when we signed him, I thought, yep, this is good. And you're right, he's a semi-final try scorer. I think in his second game for the club, we lost to South at ANZ after we'd won the first game that year against the Titans, but their Bow caught a bomb and then ran 95 metres to score. So he had some pace, had some good finishing ability. He finished out his career with us injury affected, unfortunately. Played 19 games in 2013, got 7 tries, but he only played 3 in 2014 and retired with, I believe, a neck injury. So thanks for your time, Bo, and all the off-field PR that you provided us. It was good times. So, and still is. So yeah, still a Shark. And yeah, who was it? What was his name from Jackass, as he said? Got him supporting the club.
Chris Pontius.
That's it. Who popped up recently. I think it was over in the States.
Yeah,
and he's got, I don't know how many million followers.
Their version of Book Week that he had in the States, and he wore his a Sharks jersey. He's still got to this
Sharks
day,
jersey. So. Yeah, with it might have been. I don't know if it had Shark Energy as a sponsor, but it was around that time. So
it was around that time.
It wasn't the Sharks sponsorship regime we see these days, or before. 2013 side, we spoke about it before, so we'll just touch on it here. But obviously, a sliding doors moment, a change of direction for us. We weren't to know what would happen in 2014, but we had I suppose, quiet optimism. We were still trying to get in the top 4. We wouldn't, and unfortunately, we'd lose the following or second week of the finals to Manly in a game that we probably shouldn't have, to be honest with you, with the opportunities we had and the injuries that Manly had. But it was exciting times, and obviously we saw how 2015 went on from there. Any closing thoughts from yourself about the 2013 side?
Just thinking about like where it started, where it ended, where it sort of went from there, and the blokes we signed. We're quite lucky. If you look at a day today where clubs are sort of quick to offload players and clean house, and the new regime comes in and new coaches, that could have quite happened. Like, I think we're on the precipice of a premiership only 2 or 3 years later with the guys we had, and not thinking. You think Todd Carney would be part of those plans, wouldn't you? Like, it's if someone said, "Oh, you guys are going to win a premiership in 3 years," out of my crystal ball, and you think, well, Todd Carney's probably going to be there because he has before. He was pretty much a top line star in the league at the time. So things could have gone really pear-shaped. We could have lost a few guys out of there who might have just said, you know what, this is too much, get me out of here. Like, we've lost a coach. The guys are getting suspended, who knows? But I'm glad those guys rode through those small, tough times and came out the other side.
Yeah, that's why I love doing this, because Lats and I were talking a few weeks ago about our Broncos classic match 2014 when we came back, and Todd Carney, we know the bubbler incident and his dismissal from there after he was hogging, or rightly so, a huge portion of our salary cap. And if that remained with, I suppose you look at the injury form and actual form that he had following that with his hamstrings and the like, what would have happened? I don't think we would have won the 2016 premiership. I think Boldo had a different view on that, but I think definitely not. We don't get James Maloney, and it's not through any fault of anyone. It just was circumstances. Nope. We were all devastated when Carney departed, yet you don't know what each, I suppose, devastating moment will open another door to. And with those dark times through Asada as well, we didn't know, the players didn't know. You read the accounts of Paul Gallen and some of the other players during that time, and just the absolute ringer they were put through, where their entire livelihood was at stake. And we are so lucky that we managed to get through the club remained in its present form, and B, that the players and the squad remained. Because, you look at some of those players, like you look at guys like Chris Heinington and even Jason Bakuya and Sam Tegatese, and you don't know that, or even Ricky Latelli, you don't know they're going to be part of the premiership squad until it all came together a few years later. Looking at that side again, so we had Fecky, we had Tagatese, Lewis, Heinington, Gallen, Fifita, Bakuya. So we had 6 or 7 players
of the
there.
squad.
Yeah. And Wade Graham was obviously out as well. So things were starting to build, but we didn't know that at the time.
No way.
Yeah. While for the flip side, the Dragons, they were holding on to 2010, and they'd lost pretty much not everyone by then, but a fair bit. Like they still had Nightingale and Morris, but their halves were Adam Quinlan and Nathan Feen. So that's a far cry. I'm not a Jamie Soward fan, but they're not even close to that. The fact that they're Pryor and Wayman on the bench, admittedly Pryor was probably out of a bit of form there, and they'd signed Frizzell, but they weren't.
And we got the godsend Pryor out of that.
Yeah, and I remember signing Matt Pryor, thinking, it's a bit of a pedestrian signing. And his first season in 2014 was like, he's okay. And 2015 was like, he's improved. And then 2016 was just out of sight. So good on him. And he actually played, I believe, I'll check, but I think, pretty sure he played a couple of games at starting centre for the Dragons, looking at things, looking at by position. And then positions played. Played 4 matches. 18 matches. I'll rephrase that. 18 matches at centre for the Dragons early on. 4 tries. Obviously 169 the front row, 32 at second row, 32 lock, and 72 on the bench. So versatile. And
bit of a Pomeroy for the Dragons.
Yeah, well, Pomeroy for the Dragons are transitioning to prop, because I've only ever pictured him as an out-and-out prop. So I just remember seeing one of the.
He sort of played that edge second row, but they selected him at centre. So just sort of filled out a little bit more, and like we said, that bumper towards the end of 2016.
Dear it is. Sorry about that, mate. We had a little technical. Yeah, we'll be able to edit out, I'm sure, afterwards, maybe, or maybe not. But we'll roll forward. So we're talking about Matt Pryor in there. So, sorry, you were saying?
I was just saying, we wouldn't know, that sort of bumper towards the end of 2016, that last month he had, he had a pretty good last couple of weeks, and then obviously the semi-finals and finals, he was instrumental in those wins, especially your famous one down in Canberra. So, that
was the game of his career. And I can't talk enough about that. But anyway, the Dragons side, they're on the slide. Thankfully, in their squad clean-out, we picked up Matt Pryor, and the rest is history there. Now, on to the final point. So as my computer there just decided to kick me out, thanks, Firefox, no sponsorship. I'm not using you guys again for just a little presentation of a point there saying, sorry, we had to crash and reboot. We'll roll forward to, so my opening monologue. It might be a bit of a wank, it's true. I did to try and spice things up. So thanks for hanging around, those people that did. Luke Lewis in the 69th minute came running onto a short ball. It's not really showing the highlights, but if you watch the full match replay on the NRL website, you'll see it. Gets into a bit of space. He's being tackled. It was a great tackle by Nightingale, just short of the line. He's there, and he promotes the ball. I can give you a little replay here. It doesn't show much, but I'll try and bring the video up. But as I'm doing that, this may be ringing bells. Anyway, Cummins, the referee, sends it up as a try. Now I'll just try to make sure that we don't get audio there that drowns everything out. Oh, here we are. So this only shows the bit. He comes to a stop, and unfortunately, I don't know if I'll be able to make the video work for you, but he comes to a stop, and then he nudges the ball ever so slightly onto the line, and the video referee correctly deems it a no try. Crucial point of the game. We were still down by 6 at that point. It was close to the posts. If he scored it, probably would have got us back to 18 all. So a bit of white line fever there from Luke. Dragons go back downfield, almost score and seal the game. Luckily, we get another opportunity. But I'm wondering, and I haven't asked Luke, and I suppose I'll ask him if I'd ever see him and go, now that I've seen it, the value of hindsight, go, hey, that random game in round 23 of 2013 against the Dragons where you were the line was there and you promoted the ball. Did that experience play in the back of your mind after you ran off that little step and show and go by Maloney in the grand final? Then use that, I suppose, all the fibre in his being not to put it forward. Because I don't know, I think you'd probably maybe 1 in 100.
Yeah.
players. What did this guy? Technical issues. Back again. We'll edit that out. But as I was saying, I'm not even sure what I was saying. We're talking about Lewis and promoting the ball. How many players do you think would have or wouldn't have done that? I think so many players would have just been, especially in the grand final in that moment, go on the lines right there and to have that wherewithal to not do that because obviously we scored a minute later. So, yeah, I'm not sure if you've got any players that you think that, I know plenty of players that would definitely promote the ball and give away the penalty, but how many players wouldn't? Don't know.
As you know, mate, that happened right in front of us in the grand final, and I still just don't know how he didn't score, how he didn't slide there, how he didn't promote it, how he didn't think about maybe passing back to an untouched Maloney. It was helter-skelter. He had so much momentum in those first 40 minutes that, I felt the scoreline should have been a lot bigger, but I was quite happy to be leading in a grand final anyway. So, I'm sure we'd have to show him that one. Maybe he remembers it or not, and then compare the two and say, what do you think, and see if he knew. But I've heard him do interviews about the grand final. He just knew he was short and not to promote it, and just go with what had happened.
Yeah, I'm glad he maybe just played each moment as he saw it. But he promoted the ball on this occasion in 2013, but in 2016, the one that mattered, he didn't. So thank goodness for that. Moving forward, before I cut out again, Sharks finished 22-18. Pomeroy, De Gois, Ryan, and Fifita the try scorers. Carney 3 from 4. The Dragons, Morris a double. Nightingale the tries. Chase Downey 3 from 3. We would go on to finish 5th. Obviously, the 7 tackle try. And the Kane Leonard leg is out. Drama at the City Football Stadium in week 1 of the finals, followed by, unfortunately, a late try that was going to even things up against Manly being disallowed due to, I think it was John Morris tackling someone off the ball. So, that was a definite missed opportunity there. Manly, who were injury ravaged, went through to the grand final, and Cherry Evans got the Clive Churchill, and Manly had opportunities to win that one. So that was the end of 2013 for the Sharks, while for the Dragons, they finished 14th. And who cares? So any closing comments from yourself?
No, roller coaster of a season. Obviously, the semi-final series was great. The nightmares of the SFS and semi-finals, I'm not even going to go there, so we'll skip that. Yeah,
let's leave that to another day. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and putting up with the technical difficulties. You'll notice that there were some cutouts and ins and outs there from myself, so we'll fix that, and we'll hopefully cut a few things or elements of that out to trim it down, and hopefully it patches together in a reasonable fashion. If you're there, let us know if you have any particular memories of Wynn Stadium, beating the Dragons, Fifita, all that stuff. Put them in the comments field. Next week we'll be playing the Warriors at home, so we'll be heading back to a match from 2012 involving some Jeff Robson brilliance. Thanks, Kelly, and in the meantime, up. See you soon.